च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमिर्न तेजो न वायु चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न च प्राणसंज्ञो न वै पञ्चवायु न वा सप्तधातु न वा पञ्चकोश न वाक्पाणिपादं न चोपस्थपायु चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न मे द्वेषरागो न मे लोभमोहो मदो नैव मे नैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञः अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न मृत्युर्न शङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्म न बन्धो न मित्रं गुरो नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपो विभूत्वाच्च सर्वत्र सर्वे च सङ्गतं नैव मुक्तिर्न मेया चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं 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 शिवोऽहम्
ताण्डव प्रिय हरे चन्द्रकलाधर ईशा अम्बासुतलम्बोदरवन्दित ईशा महेशा अम्बासुतलम्बोदरवन्दित ईशा महेशा Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Okay, let's start.
Hari Om.
Om. Om. Sahana Vavatu. Sahanau Bhunaktu. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome back, Vedanta Treatise. We were in chapter 5, covering the exigency of action, the essence, the importance of action, the inevitability of action. There's not enough that we can reiterate this. The spiritual path does not call for abandonment of action. It does not call for moving away from the world. If this is a misconception you have held, which most of the world holds, please, now is the time to banish it from your head. We have to relook at spirituality from a totally new lens. We have to relook at the spiritual path from a totally new lens. The spiritual path is not of resignation from action. It is, in fact, the performance of action. It is about taking the world head on, intelligently. Taking the world head on, changing not what you do in life, but how you do it. The spiritual process is not an abandonment of action, rather, it is a rehabilitation of your mind, of how it relates to action, of how it relates to its duties and responsibilities, of how it relates to what it ought to do in the world. If you choose to resign from action, you will become like a stagnant pond. Anyone seen a stagnant pond?
Yes.
Studied some biology, you'll know of the oxygen level in water. To maintain the oxygen level in water, you have to keep the water flowing. Otherwise, over a period of time, the oxygen level in water falls. And what happens is that that pond becomes, that body of water becomes inhospitable. You'll develop all sorts of algae on top of it. There are harmful plants that essentially kill all life in that water. Hmm? So when water is flowing, it is habitable. It, a stagnant pond develops inhospitability to life. It develops a stench. All sorts of problems start. So where there is action, where there is motion, there is life. In order to be alive, if you want to feel alive, you have to perform action. The problem is we don't know what to do. And if we start doing something, we get burnt out. We have all sorts of inhibitions to perform actions in the first place. And once, even if we do something, we develop all sorts of problems with the action. It stresses us out, it strains us out. There's one class of people who withdraw from action. They have nothing to do. There's another class of people who are totally burnt out from action, or totally, and they need a break. So people think the idea of a vacation, the idea of happiness is in a vacation. So Vedanta seeks to. Swamiji used to say, instead of thank God for Friday, there's a restaurant chain in the US. I'm sure many of you have seen it. Thank God it's Friday. So Swamiji used to say, I want to start a restaurant chain. Thank God it's Monday. I don't know how good that restaurant chain will do, but it's about the attitude. Thank God it's Monday. You look forward to action. You look forward to, and when you have the right attitude in action, it's not just about what you like to do. See, of course, when you like to do something, you are enthused about it. But people even get tired of that things which they like to do. They it stops appealing to them because of the wrong attitude. So, how to maintain that enthusiasm for action? That is the path of Vedanta. So, last class we covered the chronology of action. The chronology of action, essentially talking about how action comes about. What is it that prompts people to do what they do? See, you cannot imitate others. One of the biggest problems we have as far as action is concerned, in terms of at every moment of life, you are forced to act. That's a given. At any point of time, you have to perform some action or the other. You have to do something. You have to be engaged in some kind of work. The point is, what kind of work? And we often, more often than not, end up imitating others. We follow a herd instinct of what should be done. Just because others are doing it, just because others are saying it's a good thing to do, how things are done, we follow a path of imitation. So the first thing Vedanta cautions us about is we can't simply imitate others. Your action, what is right for you, may not be right for someone else. What is right for someone else may not be right for you. Right? So the first qualification of whether something is right for you or not, we're trying to define what is the right action. The first qualification is comes from the study of the chronology of action. So any action you perform is driven by desire. There is no action that is possible without desire. Desire is the prompt, desire is the push, desire is the force that causes you to act. You are here right now acting. What is this? What is the action you're performing? You're listening to a Vedanta class. You're here because you have a desire. If you have no desire, if you have no interest, you wouldn't be here. So without a desire, you will not perform any action. See, most often we don't have a desire for the action per se. We have a desire for what will I get out of it. We have a desire for what are people thinking about me. Oh, I should be doing this thing because I want the world to know me as this kind of person. So we don't have a desire for the action per se. Usually we have desire for peripheral things, either how we are perceived by the world or what the action will come out, what kind of result will come out. Doctor wants the child to become a doctor. A business person wants the child to become a business person. It's not because necessarily they have the desire for that. Why? Instead, they're looking at the benefit of it. Half the people in the world right now are studying computer science, not because they want to study computer science necessarily, because where's the money? Computer science. I'm not saying it's per se wrong. There's no problem with money, but understand this fundamental. Desire is what prompts the action. What is your desire? It's very important to understand. You have to ask yourself, you don't have to tell me, what is your desire? Be clear about it. why you are doing something. Because there is a desire in whatever you are doing. Be honest to yourself about it. What is the desire that is prompting you to act? Now, how to refine that desire, we'll come to that later. But where does the desire come from? We defined last time. A desire is a flow of thought. A desire is a stream of thought. So a single thought is like a trickle. When thoughts become numerous and they start flowing continuously, it turns into a desire. So a desire is nothing but a thick stream of thought. The thicker the stream, the more powerful the desire. See, it's like any of you seen a river flowing? A trickle is nothing, but that same trickle. See, I've been to, had the privilege of going to Gaumuk. You guys know what Gaumuk is? You know Gaumuk? Anybody know where's Gaumuk? Anybody interested in hiking?
Yeah, beyond Gangotri, beyond Gangotri.
Gaumuk is source from where the Ganges originates. It's the glacier. You should go there. Everyone. If you have interest in hiking, it's a beautiful hike. You know, when you go and you'll see incredible mountains in front of you, Bhagirathi Mountains,
Uh,
and
तो प्रमोद किस
when you go to Gangotri, which is the one of the four dhams in Uttarakhand, and from Gangotri, it's about a 19-kilometer hike. So it's a pretty popular hike actually. Essentially, back in the day, the glacier used to be much closer to Gangotri. Over a period of time, hundreds of years, that glacier has retreated. And now it is about 19 to 20 kilometers away from Gangotri. Right, so the glacier has retreated. So Gomukh has gone 19, 20 kilometers far back. So you have to hike from Gangotri to reach the source from where the Ganges originates. Bhagirathi, as we know it, originates. There you'll see there's no river only. I thought there'll be a grand river. There's no river. Small trickle coming out of the glacier. You just go a couple of maybe 2 hours downstream, 2 hours. You go to this place called Rudraprayag. See, I'm telling you all these hot spots. Anyone wanting to visit Uttarakhand, let me know. I will plan your trip for you. So you go to this place called Rudraprayag. It's a beautiful. Prayag means a junction, you know, where two rivers meet. Confluence. So in, if I'm not wrong, in Rudraprayag, the Bhagirathi meets the Alaknanda. If I'm not wrong, I could be wrong. There are a couple of Prayags. So Rudraprayag is where the rivers coming from Kedarnath meet the Kedarnath Badrinath meet the rivers coming from Gangotri. So Bhagirathi meets the Alaknanda, if I'm not mistaken. It's a beautiful sight. To and you can see the incredible gush of the rivers. You would dare not go into the water out there because the flow is so torrential. Incredible rapids. Same river, 2 hours upstream you go. It's a trickle. You can walk across. Don't do it because they recommend there can be any glacial melt. There can be some kind of a sudden sort of breakage or something like that. So they recommend you don't walk around Gangotri. But at Gomukh, the river is a simple trickle. Just 2 hours downstream in Rudraprayag, it's a torrential flow. That's your thought. It begins as a simple trickle. Before you know it, it becomes a torrential desire. Once it becomes a desire, it's very hard to control. All the desires you have today, they began as simple trickles, simple thoughts. If you want to analyze, if you have the ability to analyze all the desires you have, at one point it was just something you came across. You just happened to come across. And now you've reached a point where you can't stay without it. So a desire is simply a flow of thought. A thought itself is just a trickle. But if you allow it, if you promote it, if you allow yourself to think, it turns into a torrential desire. We're not saying it's right or wrong. That's not what we're saying right now. We're not saying any of that. But Vedanta simply cautions you. In fact, in chapters 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, verse number 62 and 63, chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, verse number 62 and 63 talks about this concept. Dhyayate vishayan punsaha sangastoshu upajayate. Your thought falls upon an object, some vishay. Dhyayato vishayan punsaha. Some vishay, in some object, your thought falls upon it. And you start thinking about it. You entertain the thought about it. If you don't control the thought at the level of thought, you develop an attachment, sangaha. Sangostu vajayate. Sangat sanjayate kaman. This attachment grows into a desire. Kaman krodha vijayate. And desire has a lot of modifications, like anger. When desire is interrupted, when you don't get what you want, when this thought has grown into a desire and you don't get what you want, there is anger. When you don't get what you desire, if you're trying to see, desire is prompting you to act. Why? Action is an effort you put in to acquire and enjoy what you desire. Any action you're doing is simply a pursuit for the fulfillment of a certain desire. You have desire for wealth, you have desire for name, you have desire for fame, you have desire for anything. You're simply putting in action to acquire that. And if that desire is unfulfilled, if something comes in the way, you develop an anger. If you taste a little bit of success, you want more, you develop greed. If you've got it, but you're afraid of losing it, you develop fear. So desire has all sorts of modification. Vedanta simply cautions you against it. If you have the ability to manage your desires, if you have the ability to manage this thought flow, you are a master. Then you don't need this class. Then you don't need to come here. You don't need this knowledge. You've got it. Okay. So Vedanta simply cautions you against it. So what is the chronology of action? Any action is prompted by desire. That desire is simply an accumulation of thought. It's simply thoughts running again and again and again and again and again. You haven't stopped it, or you haven't directed it. And where does the thought come from? Where does the thought come from? Does it just appear out of nowhere?
Vasana.
Yes. Your thought arises from your vasanas.
Vasana.
Vasana is just a word.
Vachana only.
Vasana is just a word we are throwing. It's a definition. We're defining it. Vasana is unmanifest thought, unmanifest desire. Please learn this definition today. That's what it is. It's your potential nature. It's your potential thought. It's your potential desire. It's the seed from which your thought, desire, everything arises. Your entire personality arises. And Vedanta says this vasana is a result of this vasana is an accumulation of your past. Whatever thoughts, desires, actions, intentions, feelings you have cultivated from the past, all of that accumulated, sum total is you today. Isn't it? Aren't you a product of your past experience? Is there anything else? And Vedanta pushes the limit a little bit. It says, not only are you a result of your past, this day backward from the day you were born, but you also come with a certain package. You come with a certain package from before your birth. That's called the theory of reincarnation. So you come with a certain set of vasanas. Those vasanas prompt your actions. And And then as you act, you cultivate more vasanas. The way you have functioned these last 40 years, 50 years have created you today. And what you do this day going forward will create you tomorrow. So this force of vasanas, it's called prarabdha. This force of vasanas is called prarabdha. Anyway, so these vasanas are what are prompting the kind of action you perform. Some people have vasanas for science. Some people have vasanas for humanities. Some people have vasanas for mathematics. Some people have vasanas for law. Some people have vasanas for business. Everybody has unique vasanas, no matter what family they are born into. Please get this into your head. Just because your child was born into a family of business people doesn't mean they are designed to be business people. Just because you are a doctor doesn't mean your child is designed to be a doctor. Of course, the environment influences it. If they have an interest in that, if they have the vasanas for that, the environment of a doctor's household will help them become a doctor, no doubt. The environment of a business household will help them become a business person. That's, but simply the environment they are born into is not a determinant of what they are designed to do. What they are designed to do depends on their vasanas. It's very important. So it's very important you don't thrust your desires and you don't thrust your ideas about the world onto your children. Instead, as a parent, you ought to recognize what vasanas they have. Vasanas become apparent through people's tendencies, the way they think, the way they feel, what they like, what they dislike. That's where vasanas become apparent. As a parent, you ought to identify, read that, and promote that. See, the predominant vasanas you have, there's a word given to it in Vedanta. It's called swadharma. The bulk of your vasanas determine what is your swadharma, means your innate nature, what you are designed to do. Anything opposed to it is paradharma. And swadharma is a tailwind. You know what a tailwind is? Tailwind is wind coming from the back, pushing you forward. When you're flying from, depending on the season, when you're flying from Delhi to Calcutta, sometimes the flight takes 1 hour 50 minutes. Sometimes the flight takes 2 hours 10 minutes. Why the difference? Because when there's a tailwind, it takes 1 hour 50 minutes. Paradharma is a headwind. It's a resistance to your growth. It's a resistance to your fulfillment. There's no absolute right or wrong. Circumstances also determine what is possible as far as Swadharma or Paradharma. But what Vedanta says is, first and foremost, you must try to promote Swadharma as much as possible. As much as possible. You must find expression to your Swadharma. When you do action which is Swadharmic, the action itself is pleasurable. See, we've been talking last 2 classes. You must find joy in action. You must find joy in action. And you're like, this thing I'm doing is so boring. How on earth should I find joy in it? If you're not able to find joy in action in what you're doing, it means it is paradharmic. It means it is paradharmic. You have to do action, or at least find some time, some amount of time. See, I'm confessing right now, my main swadharma is teaching. If you ask me, Utsav, what do you want to do 30 years later, 20 years later? I only want to teach. I have some swadharma for business, which is why I'm doing business. I'm confessing in front of you all right now. I have some swadharma for business, which is why I'm doing it. But if you ask me 20 years later, what you want to do? Maybe a combination of business and teaching, but primarily teaching. You may not have the ability or the option or the circumstance to do exactly your swadharma. Different people have different circumstances, but you must find some expression for it. That will bring inherent joy in your life. Otherwise, you'll be doing a lot of action, you'll be putting in a lot of effort, you'll be successful, earning a lot of money, perhaps wealth, maybe respected, but you won't have that fundamental joy. Work itself won't be pleasurable. So when you're doing action in a swadharmic field, that's called, according to your vasanas, that itself is pleasurable. So vasanas manifest as thoughts. Thoughts grow into desire. Desire forces you to act. Clear? That's the chronology of action. That's how action comes about. And the way in which you act, what you do, how you do it, primarily how you do it, will create further vasanas. So it's like a chicken and egg. It's a cause effect cycle. Past actions produce present vasanas, present actions produce future vasanas. Past actions produce present vasanas. Present vasanas produce present actions. And now present actions will produce future vasanas. It's this cycle that is going on and on and on. So, sab changa si, everything is good, vasanas are functioning. What's the problem, you may ask me? See, if I was you, I got this explanation, I would ask you, what's the problem then? Everybody is doing action according to their vasanas. Now, some vasanas you want to promote, some vasanas you don't, you want to eliminate. That's the whole idea. Some vasanas are helpful for you on the spiritual journey, and cultivating higher vasanas, lower vasanas are taking you away from the spiritual process. That's about it. So, realigning, creating that shift, what kind of vasanas you want to cultivate. I used the example last time of a garden. What kind of seeds do you want to water? What kind of seeds do you want to eliminate from your garden? That's the spiritual process. What you consciously promote and what you consciously eliminate from your own personality. That's the entire process. So now we'll discuss the next section. This is precisely what is renunciation in action. This conscious self-effort you make to cultivate what is better for your spiritual well-being and eliminate what is taking you away. It is your egoism, it's your egocentric desires that are taking you away from the spiritual process, that are taking you away from the happiness you seek. Whereas it is the promotion of higher values, an ideal, cultivation of that which is spiritual. So that encapsulates the concept of renunciation in action. That is what we will discuss in this section going forward. So, chapter 5, exigency of action, renunciation in action.
Renunciation in action. Thought, desire, and action emanate from vasanas like a video projection from a compact disc. Every being acts according to its own vasanas. A human alone amongst all living beings has the choice of action. Other living creatures are denied the freedom to act apart from their inherent nature. A tiger is ferocious. It can never be meek and mild. It must strike and kill, whereas a cow is docile by nature, far from destructive. Animals thus live through a choiceless pattern of life. An animal fulfills its vasanas in the realm of activities into which it's born. Following its determined course, an animal neither evolves nor devolves, but a human enjoys freedom of action. He could be most sacrificial to the society or be extremely harmful. He could consciously exhaust his vasanas and rise to greater heights of perfection, or accumulate vasanas and sink to lower depths of degradation. The choice to evolve or devolve is rendered possible because the human possesses the unique faculty of self-effort. Self-effort gives the freedom of action independent of vasanas. The present vasanas set the pattern of one's life, but self-effort can modify or change the pattern. This is a prerogative a human being alone enjoys.
So, every creature, every being, whether it's a human or animal or even plant for that matter, has vasanas, inherent tendencies. Now, these tendencies come from the past and they force themselves out in the present. But what's unique in a human is the choice of action. This is a big controversial debate, especially if you study Western philosophy. If you study Western philosophy, they'll say, do you have free will or do you not have free will? And they'll split hairs over it. They split hairs over it. So, in that context, Vedanta defines it beautifully. You have two forces acting upon you. Two forces, the technical definition given is prarabdha and purushartha. You must have heard of these words before. Prarabdha is the force from your past. It's your vasanas, which you have cultivated from the past. And they are a force that is prompting you to be the way you are today. Your likes, your dislikes, your preferences, your patterns, the way you think, the way you feel, how emotional you are, how intellectual you are. You may have certain tendencies. You may be hyperactive, or you may be lazy, or you may be perfectly fine. That's the force of your past. But you also have within you what is called purushartha, that capacity to change the pattern. It's called self-effort. In comparison to prarabdha, purushartha is very meek. In comparison to prarabdha, purushartha is very meek. Think of a current, a river current. If prarabdha is 100 meters per second in this direction, purushartha is 2 meters per second. I'm giving an approximate. There's no, see, the force of your prarabdha can be very strong depending on your past action. A certain like or dislike may be very strong depending on your past choices. But your capacity to change, the purushartha, is very limited. Limited in the sense, the unit of change is very limited. The amount of effort you can put at any point of time is very limited. That's why, if you want to change, see, if people studied physics, this is why physics is important. Imagine a river flowing in this direction. Suppose the river is flowing in this direction. The flow of water is 5 meters per second. Suppose the flow of water is 5 meters per second. And you are in a boat. You're in a boat. Going, the boat has an engine. And the boat has an engine which is going at 2 meters per second. The river has a flow of 5 meters per second, means the water in the river is flowing in a certain speed, and you are in a boat which has some small motor and it's going at 2 meters per second. Suppose you move in the direction of your river, means you put in effort in that direction. What will be your speed? This is a physics question. You'll go at 7 meters. Go at 7 meters per second. Why? Because you are going at 2 and the river is going at 5. So eventually you'll go faster. In fact, you go at 7 meters per second. What if you try to go in the opposite direction? You're going at, the river is flowing at 5 meters per second and you are trying to move at 2 meters per second in this direction.
You can't. No.
You'll go
You
at
can't
3.
move.
You'll go at 3.
No, you'll be going -3.
-3. What does -3 mean?
It's going towards the river itself, but at a...
You're trying to move against the river.
Yeah.
You're trying to move against the river, but eventually you're moving
Yeah.
Down.
In one direction, but you're moving in the opposite direction.
Direction.
Isn't this what happens? You put up New Year's resolutions. I want to move in this direction. What happened? By day three, you're moving in the opposite direction. It disheartens you because we are looking for immediate results. This immediate result is what? You'll move in the opposite direction. There'll be minute changes. The pressure with which certain desires were manifesting, they may reduce a little bit, but you will still move in that direction. So that's why any change in personality is rather difficult, but it's possible. What it requires is consistent effort. What it requires is consistent effort. You have to slowly, gradually reduce the flow of the river. Huh? You can't do that in the river, but you can do that in your, as far as your personality is concerned. Over a period of time, the force with which your desires flow has to reduce so that your self effort can overpower it. Your self effort is a gradual cultivation of how you want to be. That result is not going to show in one day. So, theoretically, this is what sets humans apart from animals. This is what sets humans apart from any other creature, this capacity for self effort. Every animal is a helpless expression of their vasanas. Humans too are helplessly expressing their vasanas, but they have the capacity to bring about change slowly. But for that change, you have to be patient. For that change, you have to be patient with, in terms of changing yourself. You have to be patient in changing others. See, we get upset and annoyed with others. I've explained this to you so many times. Why don't you still get it? We tell them. Why? Because change is hard. It's difficult. You can't change yourself. How can you expect others to change? You must be patient with them. You must be kind with them. You must give them that empathy. Nonetheless, it's very important for you to understand that you have a choice of action. You have a choice of action. You are a victim of your past, but you are a creator of your future. And exercising this choice, in exercising this purushartha, bit by bit by bit, bit by bit by bit, see, when you want to bring about change in yourself, not only are you working against yourself, your past vasanas are working against you, but even the environment often works against you, which is why the concept of satsang. Satsang is the idea of keeping good company, staying in a good environment, an environment which will promote your purushartha rather than your prarabdha. Please understand this today. When you're trying to use your purushartha, you must also ensure that the environment is helping you, because your prarabdha is already a force moving you in the opposite direction. So you must ensure that your environment is helping your purushartha rather than your prarabdha. And slowly, with your purushartha and your satsang, change will happen. By keeping good company, by following a basic discipline. You have a choice between meeting your friend who wants to go to McDonald's with you, or meeting your gym trainer. Who is satsang? A gym trainer is satsang. Naughty friend is dusang. Simple, silly example. So you have the choice of action and you must execute it. You must exercise it intelligently.
Exercising the choice of action, you must first select a field of activity conducive to your vasanas. From early childhood, you display a distinct interest, a leaning towards a particular branch of life. It may be science or literature, philosophy or medicine, any field of activity. You would do well to choose the field of your interest Activities which are consistent with your inherent nature are called swadharma, whereas those which are alien to your nature are paradharma. Swadharma activity helps you progress, evolve in life, while paradharma activity is detrimental, causing you to regress, devolve. People commit the fundamental mistake of choosing an alien field of activity because they have inherited it or it's just convenient for them to do so. The scripture warns you against this error in life. It will not be in your interest to choose a field of activity alien to your nature. While choosing a field compatible to your nature would promote your material and spiritual growth.
The scripture he's talking about is the Bhagavad Gita. Not once, but twice in the Bhagavad Gita, the text cautions you. You must choose your swadharma, not a paradharmic field. You must perform your swadharma. In chapter 3, verse number 35, and in chapter 18, verse number 46 or 47, I'm not sure. In the 40s, late 40s. Verse number 335 and 1840 something. He says, Swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. You must perform your swadharma. Swadharma will lead you to shreyaha. It will lead to the well-being, not only for yourself, but even for others around you. Paradharma is fraught with fear. Bhayavaha. Outside, everything will be okay, but within you, you'll be a mess if you're in a paradharmic field. So the scripture warns you against this error. First thing you have to do on the spiritual journey is find expression for your swadharma. Find and pick a field compatible with your nature. But is that it? Does it mean once we do our swadharma, all is good? No. You must give this swadharma a direction. See, you can give a swadharma a negative direction and a positive direction. You may have the swadharma for mathematics. You can give it a negative direction. How? Counting cards. You use your knowledge of mathematics to go to the casino and count cards. The same mathematics can be used to do wonderful things, do productive things for society, for oneself. So you can use the same mathematics to. You may ask, why is a casino bad? A casino is, from one perspective, a casino is bad because it simply promotes your greed. The physical counting of cards is not a problem. It's the greed and whatever else it promotes, the materialism it promotes. It's a bottomless pit. So this is not a moral science class. I'm giving an example though. You can use it in a direction which is not productive. You can use it in a direction which is productive. It's up to you. So simply your swadharma is not enough. First of all, pick your swadharma. Thereafter, give it the right direction. So what is the direction?
Having chosen the appropriate field, you must execute the right actions in life. This is important since you are given the choice of action. The general trend in human activity is to indulge in personal feeling. Attraction and repulsion seem to initiate your action. You ought not to let your likes and dislikes determine your life's activities. There is a grave error in letting your emotional feelings take over your life thus. Likes and dislikes manifesting without discretion could turn out to be your worst enemy. If you feed them indiscriminately, you court destruction. Your actions need proper direction. The intellect should guide your likes and dislikes in every action. Do as your reason bids you. What you like to do may be opposed to what you ought to do in life. Perhaps, says Thomas Huxley, the most valuable result of all education is the ability to make yourself do the thing you have to do when it ought to be done, whether you like it or not. It is the first lesson that ought to be learned, and however early a person's training begins, it is probably the last lesson a person learns thoroughly. If you wish to live up to the dignity of a human being, your intellectual judgment rather than your emotional impulse should be the guiding factor in activity. Those whose activities yield to mere emotions reduce themselves to the status of lower beings.
So your vasanas, your swadharma, merely creates in you a push. It's what creates in you likes and dislikes, preferences. But indiscriminately heeding to preferences is not the be all and end all. While you must heed your vasanas, while you must heed your swadharma, you have to exercise your discretion. Not simply doing what you like to do or what you dislike to do. The same text, the Bhagavad Gita, which talks about promoting swadharma, the same text says that your likes and dislikes are your biggest enemy. Your raga dvesha are your biggest enemy. So on the one hand, he's saying you must follow what you like to do. But on the other hand, he's saying that indiscriminately allowing likes or dislikes is not right. That should not be the parameter. Having chosen a field of action, you must utilize it in a direction of your obligation. As Thomas Huxley says, beautiful quote. If I were you, I would have highlighted it because I'm sure you can find this online, but memorize it. The most valuable result of all education, the purpose of all education, is to make yourself do the thing which ought to be done, whether you like it or not. The purpose of, so he's defining who is an educated person. An educated person is one who knows what he ought to do. It's the first thing we should learn, and perhaps the last thing we actually learn, if we learn it at all. It's the first thing we should learn, and the last thing we learn if we learn it at all. So he's setting a bar for who is a human being. A human being is one who doesn't simply yield to emotional likes or dislikes, the impulse of his preferences, but one who exercises intellectual judgment. Is this the right thing to do? Is this what I ought to do? Is this going to help me and help others? So if you reduce yourself to mere emotions, he says you're an animal. That's what he means out of it. He's saying you reduce yourself to the status of lower beings, to the level of an animal. Whereas to be human means to exercise your discretion for or against. See, this doesn't mean you have to do what you dislike and you have to not do what you like. All he's saying is just because you like to do something may not be the right thing to do. If it's the right thing to do, go ahead. If it's the right thing to do, go ahead. So do as your reason bids you, based on your worldview, based on your values, based on the world you want to create around you, with an insight of the consequences of your actions, with an ability to see the results of your choices. All of these things are parameters your intellect has to determine. So, having chosen a swadharmic field of action, you have to let your intellect take over, determining what you ought to do. This is where we'll conclude today. I will not push it too much. I can see a bunch of questions which I'd like to take up. Hmm. Okay, I see Ayush has a bunch of questions. And Ayush always leaves sharp at 9, so I want to address these questions before he leaves. He says the fact that Purushartha is meek in comparison to Prarabdha, does that reinforce the fact that we are destined to meet our fate? And doesn't that create a disincentive to try and change our destiny? See, um, I would be, I would be cautious to throw around this word destiny, because the fact is that this world is kaleidoscopic. Kaleidoscopic means it's it's an incredible pattern which you can't quite make sense of. You may think, oh, I can understand what my destiny is, but you can't exactly quite understand. You can't make sense of it. So let's not meddle with things that we can't fully understand. So I would not, uh, I don't want to go into the debate of whether things are predetermined or not predetermined. According to Vedanta, they aren't. Hmm? But all it's saying is that you are like a projectile which comes with a certain force and direction, right? That force and direction is your past vasana. And if you don't make changes, or you don't consciously apply yourself, put self effort, any intelligent scientific mind will reasonably guess, oh, based on the you know the past force, where that projectile will land. Hmm? So you see someone driving recklessly on the road. You see someone driving recklessly on the road. You'll know sooner or later this person is going to meet an accident, isn't it? So what is that? That's an intelligent observation you are making, intelligent conclusion you are drawing based on the observation you are making. Now, the sharper your intellect, the more insightful you can become of, bigger things in life. So while there is a force from the past, there's no such thing as a clearly defined destiny. In fact, what makes you human is your capacity to negotiate and renegotiate your prarabdha. What I mean by that is, um, whatever choices you have made in the past, life is giving you a new opportunity uh, to reevaluate. Of course, the fact that it is meek in comparison to the fact that Purushartha, the unit of self effort we can put in, is meek compared to Prarabdha, it only means that change will be slow. That's all it means. But we are here to run a marathon. We're not running a sprint. We're not sprinting. The spiritual process, the process of life and growth, is a marathon. So it only reinforces that we have to be patient with ourselves. Something else I will say in this regard: your efforts are compounding. Compound interest, right? The idea of compounding. So efforts you put in today will not only affect your action today, but a sum total of that will compound over a period of time. So while self effort is meek in individual units, you know what is the effect of compounding. Hmm? What is that famous example they give? Anybody? See, when you do mathematics,
20% effort gives 80% results. Is that the way?
there's a beautiful definition.
The amount you save every month.
One, yeah, compound interest, or compounding, right? 1 to the power 365. This is very popular mantra they use in management lectures and stuff like that. 1 to the power 365. If you raise 1 to the power 360, I'm talking math now. 1 raised to the power 365 is 1. 1 raised to the power 365 is 1. But 1.01, 1.01 means a little bit of change, a little bit of effort to the power 365. 1 to the power 360. I've searched on Google, so you don't think I'm making this up. 1 to the power 365 is 1. 1.01, simply 01 I've added. A meek small unit of change to the power 365 is 37.783. Whatever. Point is, it's much more than 1. So the point we're trying to drive home is consistent self effort. Even though individual units may not be strong enough in comparison to prarabdha, but consistent self effort leads to not only change but dramatic change. Dramatic change. The problem you and I lack, the problem you and I have, the thing you and I lack is consistency. Our mind seeks instant gratification. Our mind seeks instant change. And we spend years and years trying and giving up, trying and giving up, trying and giving up. What you and I lack is consistency. So consistent self-effort is the secret of change. And change you couldn't have even imagined. What is 37 compared to 1? Unimaginable change. So you'll surprise yourself. That's the secret of consistent self-effort. The second question of Ayush: what might be the swadharma of an accomplished thief? Always this question comes about. All these intelligent people think of the same question. They always think of thieves. What might be the swadharma of an accomplished thief? Are we suggesting that swadharma is necessarily a force of good? Is what determines whether we are working in the larger good of society or against it? See, when we use the term good or bad, right? Inherently, Vedanta says there's nothing good or bad. We always define it in terms of some kind of worldview that we define. So if you want to look at it from the worldview of a social structure, yes, things that are beneficial for society can be defined as good. Things that are beneficial for harmful to society can be termed as bad. As far as your own spiritual growth is concerned, the law is selfish action leads to agitation, unselfish action leads to peace and bliss. There's nothing good or bad about it. It's about what you want. Do you want to be agitated? Do you want to be lonely? Be selfish. No problem. No one is here judging you. You want to be peaceful? You want to be blissed out? Try to be unselfish. So no moral judgments out here. We are simply looking at the outcome and saying, recommending a certain course of action, right? So which is why in Vedanta we don't say, oh, I'm going to help this person only because he's good, or I'm not going to help this person because he's bad. No such moral judgments. So are we suggesting that Swadharma is necessarily a force of good? See, Swadharma is simply a force. Swadharma is a force. You can use it for good, you can use it for bad. It's a tool in your spiritual progress, but if you don't give it the right direction, it can undo its own benefit. So what might be the swadharma of an accomplished thief? A lot of things. Any theft requires a lot of planning and scheming. See, there's a you've seen the advertisement. I don't know if it's Castrol or what kind of engine oil it is. Earlier, Rahul Dravid used to promote Castrol, but right now, if you're seeing the IPL, you'll see these Rahul Dravid ads. Some people are discussing. There's one ad where a husband and wife are sitting in their car and the car is not coming on. You seen that ad?
Scooter is not.
No,
Yeah.
car, and the car is not coming on.
Right oil you.
So
He's telling what right oil you should use.
जी, अरे एक मिनट मुझे
They're
बोल
discussing
बहुत
actually.
अच्छी ad है. बहुत अच्छी ad है.
Mr. Dependable.
My husband are discussing about their child's admission. Simultaneously, the husband is trying to turn on the car and he's like, अरे यार अभी तो गाड़ी सर्विस होने गई थी, क्या हो गया? And simultaneously, the wife is saying, we should send the child here, we should send like this school. Husband is saying, I don't have enough money to send him to an international school. They're deliberating. and suddenly Rahul Dravid pops. Like knock knock. He's like अगर इतना अपने engine oil के बारे में सोच लिया होता तो ये हालत नहीं होती आपकी गाड़ी की. हाँ?
हाँ,
इतना जो आप सोच रहे हो engine oil के बारे में सोच लिया था. Same thing you have to tell the thief. हाँ? The thief sitting in jail. इतना सोचा आपने चोरी कैसे करेंगे, इतना सोचा आपने भाग के कैसे निकलेंगे, इतना प्लान और स्कीम किया. अगर इतना ही आप अपने किसी प्रोडक्टिव फील्ड में सोच लिए होते आपने, तो आप बहुत सक्सेसफुल होते. द सेम थीफ वुड हैव बीन अ सीईओ इन अ कंपनी.
correct.
So the thief, if you ask me, they are very intelligent people. They have the capacity to be very enterprising.
Yeah, yeah. Innovative.
Just one or two wrong directions. So when we use the word swadharma, we don't necessarily mean the end action you are performing. We're talking about the pattern of thinking, we're talking about the underlying skills that a person demonstrates, right? And those things, those skills can be utilized in a particular activity which is, in the eyes of society, good, or in the eyes of society, bad. And each of those have their consequences. You perform a good action as per society, you'll be rewarded. You perform a bad action as per society, you'll be jailed, right? So the swadharma of a thief, if you can get them onto a sensible path, they can be very successful. Same
So
question.
I had a follow-up question to the first question. Yes,
Sure.
is that and the fact that we don't have an idea of what destiny is, and therefore let's not kind of confuse ourselves with the fact that we know it. I think yet, when there are certain events that happen in one's life, Vedant also tells us to accept them as things that had to happen. So, so I mean, there is some sort of a paradox there, maybe, in terms of on one hand saying that nothing is predetermined, that small consistent efforts can bring about the change. Yet when there are certain events, death, loss, whatever it is, it begs you to accept it because it was predetermined.
See, when I use the word predetermined, what I simply mean is a set of actions that have led to a certain result, right? Predetermined this time going back. If you could go back in time and change certain parameters, change certain forces, change your own effort or the effort of others, yes, the result would have been different, right? So when Vedanta says that you have to accept a certain eventuality, what it is simply saying is you can't go back in time and change those parameters. First of all, not everything is in your control. As the Beatles say, don't carry the world upon your shoulders. You can't. Huh? Hey Jude, don't be afraid. You are made to. Beautiful song. You heard that song? Don't carry the world upon your shoulders. You can't. It's difficult to put in Purushartha oneself. Imagine it's impossible to make others do things differently. And any eventuality is a sum total of everybody's efforts, not just your own. So when any certain eventuality comes, we often have the idea of blaming ourselves. Oh, I could have done things differently. First of all, think if you can maintain objectivity, yes, try to analyze what you could have done differently so that you don't lead yourself down the same path. But most often it's not possible. It's a retrospective thinking. From this, when you rise up the mountain, when you climb up the mountain, you say, oh, I could have come up by this route also. But when you're down there, you don't have access to seeing other routes, right? So most often than not, when we retrospectively think of something, we actually overestimate what we could have done, right? So we have to be, if our intentions were right in any situation, retrospectively we shouldn't blame ourselves. Because what we have to go by is our intention at any point of time. Today, with my best intentions, I'm doing a certain kind of activity. Tomorrow, when I analyze, I say, oh, maybe I could have done something differently. But it's not visible to me right now, given my current intellect. What I can control today is the power of my present intellect, my present ability to analyze and make certain choices, and my intention. Right? Then comes others' choices. It's impossible to control others' choices. Uh, Others are constantly eating sweets and turning diabetic. You can't blame yourself. Oh, I could have taken them to a better doctor. I could have done this approach, this treatment we could have given them. We could have, maybe introduced dialysis at an earlier point. People have all these, especially when there's an eventuality with a family member. After a point, it's not about what you did, it's about what they did. Right? And beyond that, there are also forces of past actions which you can't necessarily recollect, especially when certain traumatic incidents happen. You can't say, oh, this person did this, that's why this happened. There are vasanas from the past before, without you having any memory of it. So taking all of these together, Vedanta says, look, this is a ball set in motion. Either you have memory of that or not, but you can't change it now. So you have to have a acceptance of it. When we say predetermined, we don't say predetermined without an ability to change. We simply say there was a set of cause and effect that led to this eventuality. You cannot change it. Don't be hard on yourself. Accept it. This world is kaleidoscopic. You cannot make sense of every action and every reaction. You can't add one and one and make, stitch the world together. Right? So it's a don't lament in vain. That doesn't mean that, oh, it's predetermined and none of your efforts could have changed anything. See, there's a difference in those 2 points. Are you getting the difference? Right? So when Vedanta says things are predetermined, all it's saying is there is a chain of cause and effect that has led to this result. Accept it humbly. That has led to this eventuality.
Uddhavji, I want to say on this Swadharma. Have you heard of DMIT? That is, everything is in your hand. That is a technology by which they find out what is going to be your line of activity in life. That is, DMIT means the thermoglycophil intelligent test, mental intelligence test, which is very prevalent nowadays. So it is Swadharma, which is printed in the hand, left hand and right hand also. You might have heard about that also. So that is one thing. My question is, another question is that is ego a part of Purushartha or it is a part of Prarabdha? Because when a child gets up at the age of 2 or 3, you tell him to do something. He says, no, I don't want to do. He doesn't say, but he says no. So that no means he has got an ego. Isn't it? So is it a part of Swadharma or Prarabdha, or it is a part of Purushartha? Purushartha won't be, because he's too young to have a Purushartha. Anyway, please tell me.
Every human being has an ego. Every being has an ego. Ego simply means that capacity of identification. Now that the direction of the ego, when we usually use the word egoistic, we say that identification with one's individuality. I, me, mine. Right? Everybody has it. The degree differs. So the more I, me, my you do, the more egoistic we say you are. Right? And the degree of that egoism today is determined by your prarabdha. How you have, what kind of thoughts and intentions you have put into your actions, how you have approached situations, what you have been taught. what you have seen in the environment, all of that, sum total, has created in you a certain potency of ego. That potency is your prarabdha. So you see it in babies also. Some babies are born carefree. Within the moment they turn a couple of years old, you'll see it. You'll see the ego starting to manifest. You have to give it a couple of years. So before much environmental influences, you can actually see the package they came with, right? The potency of their ego, right? Some people are very self-conscious. Some people are carefree. So the level of egoism also is, of course, a prarabdha, and through your purushartha you can either promote it further or you can reduce it. If you understand the value of eliminating your ego, if you understand the value, you will put the purushartha in that direction. If you don't understand the value, many people think, oh, there's value in ego, right? And they consciously put in effort to strengthening the ego. That will be the result. So any further questions?
उत्सव जी, आपने जैसा कहा, हेलो,
Sorry.
हाँ, आपने भी कहा कि अकॉर्डिंग टू वेदांता एवरीथिंग इज नॉट प्री डिटरमिन्ड, लेकिन हमने तो अभी तक यही सुना है कि कुछ चीजें तो प्री डिटरमिन्ड होती हैं, जो जिसमें हमारे पास चॉइस नहीं होती, प्रारब्ध होती हैं, जो तो कुछ चीजें तो प्री डिटरमिन्ड होती हैं।
देखिए, प्री डिटरमिन्ड का मतलब क्या होता है? प्री डिटरमिन्ड का मतलब है कि आप दो स्तर से देख सकते हैं, राइट? प्री डिटरमिन्ड का मतलब है कि सब कुछ डिसाइड हो गया, आपको चेंज नहीं हो सकता। जितने भी एफर्ट लगा लो, कुछ चेंज नहीं हो सकता। बट वेदांता वो नहीं कहती है। वेदांता कहती है जो आज हो रहा है उसका एक कारण है। जो आज हो रहा है दैट हैज बीन डिटरमिन्ड बाय प्रीवियस कॉज एंड इफेक्ट। सो इन दैट सेंस आज जो हो रहा है वो प्री डिटरमिन्ड था कॉज एंड इफेक्ट से, और आप पीछे नहीं जा सकते। बट आगे जाकर के आप अपने पुरुषार्थ के द्वारा एफर्ट डाल सकते हो। आगे जाकर के आप एफर्ट डाल सकते हो। हमने ये भी कहा कि प्रारब्ध के तुलना में पुरुषार्थ बहुत कम होती है। तो शायद प्रारब्ध जहाँ बहुत स्ट्रांग है वहाँ हो सकता है कि या तो बहुत पुरुषार्थ लगे, जो पॉसिबल नहीं है, तो पुरुषार्थ का ज़्यादा कोई इफेक्ट नहीं आएगा। तो उस तरह से आप बोल सकते हो कि ठीक है, ये तो होने का ही है। बट अगर आप अभी हार मान लोगे कि ये तो नहीं बदल सकता जी, बिकॉज हम जैसे ही बोलते हैं ना प्री डिटरमिन्ड है, लोग हार मान लेते हैं। अरे इसमें क्या फ़ायदा एफर्ट करने का, ये तो प्री डिटरमिन्ड है। वेदांत कभी नहीं कहते कि एफर्ट नहीं डालनी चाहिए। वेदांत कहता है आप प्रारब्ध के बारे में सोचो ही मत। आपके हाथ में जो है, आपके हाथ में क्या है? आपका पुरुषार्थ। आपके हाथ में आपका पुरुषार्थ है, उस पे फोकस करो। जो प्रारब्ध है आप समझ नहीं सकते। हु इज टू से कि ये प्रारब्ध था? तो लोग कहेंगे हाँ ब्रीहु संहिता में लिखा हुआ है। सो you can either be someone who's completely given up on purushartha, but Vedanta never says that प्रारब्ध कोई मान के चलो, पुरुषार्थ में कोई इफेक्ट नहीं है। वेदांता says आप ये सी चैप्टर 3 में आता है, भगवान कृष्ण कहते हैं ये कर्म की जो ये दिस आइडिया ऑफ कर्मा बहुत गहरा है। ये कर्म जो हम कहते हैं, इट्स योर कर्मा, इट्स योर डेस्टिनी, इट्स योर प्रारब्ध, ऑल दिस थिंग, ये बहुत गहरा है। उसका कहने का क्या
गति अति गहन है जो कहते हैं ना।
उसका कहने का क्या मतलब है कि इसके बारे में सोचो मत, आप समझ नहीं पाओगे कि ये मेरा
most of the things can be changed by your purusharth.
वेदांता doesn't even say कि आप इच्छा करो कि ये चेंज हो जाए। वेदांता सिंपली सेज अपने पुरुषार्थ पे फोकस करो, जो जहां आपको चेंज लानी है वहां परिश्रम करके चेंज लाओ। और वेदांता ये भी कहती है अनाश्रिता कर्म फलम कार्यम कर्म करोति है। आपका अधिकार सिर्फ आपके कर्म से, आपके पुरुषार्थ से है, सिर्फ आपके पुरुषार्थ से है। आपके पुरुषार्थ में आपको सफलता मिलेगी कि नहीं मिलेगी, ये सब्जेक्ट बहुत गहरा है, इसमें मत घुसो। हाँ, बट इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि अपने पुरुषार्थ को आप सरेंडर कर दो, नहीं, अपने पुरुषार्थ में डटे रहो। तो ये गहरी टॉपिक है और कोई नहीं कह सकता ये तो होने का ही है। So if I were you, I wouldn't get into this is a resignation it creates in you. आप वेदांत क्वेश्चन ज्यादा मत करो, मत पढ़ो इस पे। Does that answer your question?
ये मान के चले कि पॉसिबिलिटी है कि पुरुषार्थ से चीजें चेंज होंगी।
Well, let's be hopeful, let's be optimistic. और मैंने आपको क्या कहा, आपको क्या उदाहरण दिया कि कंसिस्टेंट पुरुषार्थ ऐसी चेंज ला सकती है जो आपने सोचा ही नहीं होगा। आज बैठ करके लगता है कि ये तो अब इम्पॉसिबल है, ये तो जरूर प्रारब्ध ही होगा, ये तो जरूर प्री डिटरमिन्ड ही होगी, बट कंसिस्टेंट पुरुषार्थ in a certain direction it will bring about a change you couldn't have imagined. I'm not guaranteeing it, ये मैं लिख के नहीं दे रहा हूँ कि ये चेंज होगा, वो तो आपके पुरुषार्थ पे डिपेंडेंट है। बट अगर आप कंसिस्टेंट पुरुषार्थ करोगे एक डायरेक्शन में तो बहुत कुछ चेंज हो सकता है। लोग पुरुषार्थ करते नहीं हैं इसीलिए वो अपने प्रारब्ध के विक्टिम्स हैं। वेदांता यही भी कहता है आप पुरुषार्थ नहीं करोगे तो आप अपने प्रारब्ध के विक्टिम होगे, यू विल बी अ विक्टिम ऑफ योर डेस्टिनी, राइट। 99% ऑफ अस वी आर विक्टिम्स ऑफ आवर डेस्टिनी। तो हम हार मान करके रो धो करके बैठे हुए हैं, अरे सब कुछ तो लिखा हुआ है, हमें तो सफर करना ही है। नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। जो जो आपके कैपेसिटी में है आप उतनी एफर्ट डालो और एन एटीट्यूड ऑफ रिनंसिएशन के साथ उस एफर्ट को करते रहो। कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन। जो हो रहा है उसका एक कारण है, वो आप पूरी तरीके से समझ नहीं सकते, बट आप उसे इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकते हो फ्यूचर में जाकर के ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम। यही दैट्स द लिमिटेशन, दैट्स योर लिमिटेशन। यस प्राची, यू हैव अ क्वेश्चन।
एक छोटी सी चीज और पूछनी थी मुझे।
अच्छा सॉरी वन सेकंड। यस अनिल जी, यस।
आप वो एक टर्म बहुत ज्यादा यूज करते हैं पर से मुझे समझ में नहीं आता उसका क्या मीनिंग है।
अब अगली बार जब मैं यूज करूंगा तो मैं आपको समझाऊंगा कि उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में मैंने क्या, इसका क्या मतलब था। अगली बार जब मैं, बिकॉज इट्स जस्ट अ फिगर ऑफ स्पीच, बट आई विल कम टू इट, आई विल एक्सप्लेन इट व्हेन आई यूज इट नेक्स्ट। हाँ जी, यस प्राची।
Should we take it up next time? It's late.
Why you want to go?
No, I'm asking for you. So
these things are recorded, so people want to watch it, they can see it in the YouTube. I'm okay. I have another 7-8 minutes. Yes.
Okay, so my question was that, like you said, for some people, it's very clear what their Swadharma is. Like you said, maybe your Swadharma is teaching or a little bit of business. And sometimes you're a jack of all trades, but not a master of none. Like, you have different Swadharmas, or you have a little interest in everything. In those cases, like, how do you choose your Swadharma, or choose what action to put your efforts in?
See, first of all, I think to know your Swadharma is an extremely, to have a clear Swadharma is an extremely rare thing.
Okay.
And I'm lamenting that you assume that I have a clear Swadharma. It's taken me a very roundabout.
You just said it, that's why I was.
That's because I've put in sufficient
it's
thought.
Taken you a lot of time to understand. Okay.
See, it's as simple. It's not very complicated. What kind of action enthuses you? Do facts and figures and statistics and numbers enthuse you? Does discussion and debate enthuse you? Does scientific concepts enthuse you? Does architecture enthuse you? Does designing enthuse you? Right? And yes, there may be 4 or 5 things. Generally, most people have 3 or 4 things that is enthusiastic, enthusiasm, right? And you have to take a combination of that and design for yourself, carve out for yourself a field of activity that is addressing some of them, if not all of them, right? So that's the effort you have to do, to use your intellect to find out, okay, where is a field of activity through which I can find expression for this. But if you ask me, you know your Swadharma. Everybody knows their Swadharma. Jack of all trades only means that there are numerous of them, but even if you sit to actually quantify, some are simply passing interests, some are simply casual interests, some are deeper interests.
Yeah.
See, as we're speaking right now, I'm renovating my house upstairs, and the contractor I've hired, he's like, "Sir, आप तो architect बन जाओ." I'm not saying I'm very good at it, but I'm doing calculations and doing designs for false ceilings. Now that's not my job. It's a jack.
Yeah,
I'm a
but you're
jack in
just
this trade.
good at it because you have other skills.
Correct. I'm a jack at this trade, right? Similarly, you'll be a jack at many trades. Doesn't mean any passing, fleeting interest you pick up, right? You think seriously about it, and about 2 or 3 things which are most inspiring. Huh? And usually it is not knowing what to do that stops us from doing action. It's usually the inhibition to action is, will I succeed in it?
The fear of failure. Yeah.
Inhibition to action is not what to do. The inhibition of action is, oh, will I be able to manage it? Will I be able to succeed in it? Right?
It's definitely more of the fear of failure. Yeah.
So it's not generally the Swadharma which is hard to figure out. The problem is usually, oh, will I succeed or not succeed? And there Vedanta says,
Focusing on the fruits.
indeed. Or will people appreciate what I'm doing? How will people perceive me, what I'm doing?
Yeah,
All
definitely.
these thoughts are usually a far greater impediment to action than a confusion about what am I supposed to do. What you're supposed to do or what you should be doing, we overthink it. We overthink it. Our Swadharma actually comes, if you are, what do you like? You'll be, if you don't want to confess out here, you'll be able to at least rattle off to yourself 3, 4 things which interest you.
Yeah, 3, 4 things.
Something small in that regard. Don't have to set up a business conglomerate about it. And go slowly. Take it step by step. Doesn't mean you have
Yeah, I think it's more of the success part which you think of, whether you'll succeed in it, or sometimes you'll pick up a thing which you think you're interested in or is your Swadharma, is probably related to what you are good at naturally, maybe a little bit. But then if you don't succeed at it, then you start thinking whether it was actually your Swadharma or whether it was something you just picked out.
Indeed. So take up action with no axe to grind, he says. Something you enjoy doing, just do it, regardless of whether people are appreciating you for it or not. And sooner rather than later, not only will the action be joyous, you will find success.
Yeah.
I'm confessing again out here. There have been days when I've dressed up in my uniform, worn this mala and a dhoti, and sat, and nobody stand up. Nobody stand up. Does that mean you stop the action? You have to fight those inhibitions. You have to fight those unnecessary distractions of the mind, and you have to fight the despondency of the mind. So dharma is clear to 99% of people. If not one clear Swadharma, then at least 3, 4 things which is inspiring to them, comes naturally to them.
Yeah. It's also called Harpan Mola. Harpan Mola.
Okay.
The person who can do everything is also called Harpan Mola.
Acha, the jack of all trades. Okay.
Jack of all trades.
What is it?
Harpan Mola.
Harpan Mola. मौला तो इंग्लिश का उर्दू का वर्ड है मौला, मतलब कि मुल्ला ही समझो, और फन बोले तो इंग्लिश का भी वर्ड है, सेम नेम, फन,
हर फन
मौला,
हर फन मौला, ठीक है.
Jack of all
New
trades.
word we've learned.
But
मास्टर
sometimes
ऑफ ऑल ट्रेड्स हो गया.
जाके चलो ठीक है जी. हरिओम. हैव अ गुड डे.
Thank
हरिओम.
you.
See you again on Monday.